everyone, and welcome to the College Chaps podcast. Well, it's been a few weeks since we last sat round the mic, meaning there's a lot of college football news to catch up on. So, in this episode, we're going to have a right good blather about what on earth has been happening since we last spoke. Spoiler alert, a lot has been happening. But first, with the chaps, I'm George, and I'm joined by the duo who have done to college football podcasting what Ant and Dec have done to Saturday night primetime entertainment. Yes, it's Ollie and Alex. How are you both?
I'm just wondering which one of us is Ant and which one of us is Deck, to be honest.
That's for you to decide. I'm not going to get into that debate.
Nice use of blether in the introduction, by the way, George, as well. I really appreciated that.
Best way to go, isn't it?
Hmm.
Alex has got a haircut. Happy haircut, Alex.
Yeah, had a haircut. Um, Won a national championship. Been a good couple of months since I've been on, right? Like so, you know. Oh, I've not no. I've not made any gains in the gym department, Oliver.
Oh no,
That's
I was just saying that was just a very subtle flex.
It really was big flex, to be honest. It was. Ollie's got a new house. We're now seeing this is your debut of the Chateau Hodgkinson. So we're now seeing if you're on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, well, you're missing out, frankly. Um, Happy house, moving in all over.
Thank you very much for my Navy football inspired blinds. Um, Shout out to the Navy midshipmen.
Always on brand. So Alex is national champion. You've got a new mansion. Yeah, it's all happening, and this podcasting malarkey must be working out for somebody.
Ollie also got banned from Twitter, which is, that
Oh,
I feel like
So
that's
we
quite
meant
big
to,
news.
we meant to talk about it. Well, that was second behind Belichick, but we meant to talk about that. I don't know. Is that detrimental to your appeal, Oliver? If we start talking about that?
banned. I think banned makes it sound so much worse. But then again, like permanently suspended seems pretty bad as well. So I guess talking about Elon Musk and your privacy of your own house and his Nazi propaganda, they find you out eventually. I guess is what's happened there.
We should learn from past experience. We have no idea who's listening to this podcast. That's all I
Yeah,
can say. No
or you
idea.
or yourself in the privacy of your own home.
Time to move on, I believe. I mentioned Bill Belichick. And that seems an appropriate place to start. Let Bill join the rest of the circus. What I don't know. I'm kind of lost for words with this. Last year, University of North Carolina just seemed kind of. I mean, it's obviously a very auspicious university. It's a great place to go to school. It's got such an incredible history. Most recently, Mac Brown was the head coach. Do you know what I mean? Mac Brown will be in the College Football Hall of Fame, no problem at all. And in the space of weeks, and I don't believe that I would ever think I'd be using Bill Belichick and circus in the same. It is a complete nonsense, isn't it? I'm missing something.
Look, Belichick had the best quarterback of all time in the NFL. So he's still actually, and this sounds so weird to say, but he's still actually a little bit unproven as a coach
Oh, very
because
true.
you look at his record without the best quarterback in the NFL, and he's got very little to no history in the college game. So it's not really the most auspicious of starts, is it? To your college coaching career. Um, Look, there's obviously so many media circuses that go on now in college football with NIL, with the transfer portal, with half of the Georgia team getting arrested for DUIs. Just so much chaos. There's such a big fanfare, such a circus around everything that goes on. This doesn't actually feel that out of place.
I guess it. I guess it doesn't really, to be perfectly honest. It's hard to anticipate anything that's going to happen in college football. Um, but I guess Bill is this good for Bill Belichick, Oliver? I mean, you're closer to this than any of us because New England are your team, so you've benefited from the guess the Tom Brady experiment that Alex alluded to. But is this good in terms of Belichick's personality, media brand, whatever? I guess that's what we're leading to a bit.
I thought you were going to say I'm close to the situation because I've got a younger girlfriend. I was going to say the age difference between myself and Emily is nowhere near the age difference between Bill and Jordan.
I'm really glad to hear that, to be honest.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm only 41, so that sort of age gap would be problematic. I think more so than getting suspended permanently from Twitter, but whatever.
Yes, let's move on.
Look, let's get back to college football. Bill, like, excuse me. If you remove the media,
I like the fact that Ollie's choking to death.
I'm choked up at the situation. If you remove the media circus around Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson and the various different things that have happened, reports that have been out there, counter reports and whatnot. I think what you strip away from all of that and look at how Bill Belichick fits into the college football arena in the pantheon of what we've seen across the sport. We talked about Mac Brown and North Carolina. The sport is very rapidly becoming not an older coach's game, not a traditional coach's game because of all the things that we've discussed on multiple episodes over the past 12, 18, 24 months, whatever it is, where older coaches don't want to be involved in the NIL element. They're becoming tired of what that entails in the recruiting element of college football. That for a lot of coaches has historically been the real joy of coaching college football is going in and recruiting those athletes. You know, we've heard coaches like Nick Saban talk about their experience going into a family's home and recruiting their son to play college football at the University of wherever. That's been a joyful part of the game. And for a lot of the older coaches, that stopped being a joy for the game. So I think we should, Jeff Hafley and multiple other head college football coaches jumped to positional roles in the NFL because of this exact thing. And so for Bill Belichick, a guy who, I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head how old Bill is, but he was retired as an NFL coach. To come back into the college game was I think an eyebrow raising move for him at the time, and now he's surrounded by this whole circus of a younger person with Jordan Hudson and whatever that is bringing. And it brings to mind, the sort of cringy videos of Brian Kelly gyrating on a rotating disc with a top recruit. Like, it's rapidly becoming not an older coach's game. I think a lot of people will appreciate that. And I think that's at the crux of the issue, really. I think for North Carolina for this season and moving forward is that more so than the media circus. Yeah, that's suboptimal for a program that traditionally isn't, surrounded by the drama that Alex alluded to with programs like Georgia and some of the other programs that are historically in the media for all the wrong reasons. I think that's the big thing where this hire is concerned.
This is an interesting one insofar as, if you look at Belichick's standing in the same way that, Saban, Mac Brown, Dabo Swinney, whatever, could say, look at the number of players I've guided to the NFL. Come join my program. I'll get you into the NFL. Belichick could swing it the other way and say, well, listen, I know exactly what it takes to be in the NFL, so come to me and I'll. So I kind of see the recruiting angle in a slightly different way to the Brian Kelly thing because, we all kind of made fun of Brian Kelly, but what he's trying to do is he's trying to fit into that kind of modern world of recruiting where, you just have to be a parody of yourself to, do what it takes to get the recruit. So I can see where, but I mean, I don't know how close he is to the story. Pablo Torre is obviously, run the story and is making a name for himself. I know he's a big name at ESPN anyway, but I think to myself, he said recently that Bill Belichick might not even coach a game at UNC, such as the kind of earthquake that's happening at the school just now. I mean, that would just be a terrible look for all parties, wouldn't it?
It would be,
Yes.
yeah. Sorry, Alex. Well,
No, no. For me, it would be, but it also would be quite a heartwarming thing, a trusting thing if you're a UNC fan, right? What's worse is if you let this circus go on all year, because that becomes a lot harder to recover from. If they turn around tomorrow and go, yeah, we don't like this, we don't like the girlfriend having as much influence as this, we don't like the way this has gone about, it goes against the values of our school. Yeah, they probably get hurt short term, but I think long term they're better off for it. So um, they have to decide what part of the ride they want to go on. You don't have success without some sort of craziness attached to it, especially in this day and age with NIL and everything else that goes with being successful in college football.
the thing is as well, where that reporting is concerned, there's a little bit of gasoline on the fire with that, because obviously when Belichick was first announced to UNC, there was all the furore over his contract and the fact that there was a clause in there which was essentially how much he would get paid if he never coached a game on Chapel Hill. And obviously now a report comes out saying, oh, he might not make it to the season. We're getting very close to the date. I think it was June the 1st that was reported as that contractual date where if Bill Belichick was no longer with the North Carolina Tar Heels, there'd be a certain change in the valuation of his contract there. So I think with that, there's a lot of smoke and a lot of fire and a lot of intrigue when a report like that comes out that kind of concurs with things that were being discussed when he was first hired.
Enough of Bill Belichick. Let's move on to another story, actually. I mean, there's been so many that have come about over the last couple of weeks, but let's talk about the Ross Dellinger ran the story about the potential the expansion for a college football playoff. What do you guys think about that? Moving to 16, that just feels to me like a big move straight away. What do you think?
Well, I mean, theoretically, it's not a big move. If you go we went from 4 to 12, 12 to 16, it's not a significant, a significant leap. In some respects, it evens up a format so that you go 16-8, 4-2 winner. I guess presumably that's what they would do with that rather than having this uneven number of divisible teams that results in a first round bye and things like that. Presumably a 16 team tournament would have a straightforward 4 round element to it. I guess so. I don't think it's that big a leap in terms of the number. I think it's something that's been discussed before. I think what really gets my go is the auto bid situation. Yeah. Look, we've just had a 12 team. People thought expanding from 4 to 12 was going to be ludicrous and ruin the value of the sport and ruin the spectacle. We're just coming off one of the best college football seasons. I think fans, analysts, people who work in college football, people who are around this sport, I think can agree that we've just had one of the most memorable college football seasons, one of the greatest college football seasons we've seen for a long time. So obviously the number of playoff teams didn't dilute the product as people thought it might do. I think what will dilute the product if it goes to the 16-team playoff is saying before the season, 4 SEC teams, 4 Big Ten teams, 3 ACC teams, whatever the rest of the numbers are as they go down, are guaranteed to get into the college football playoff. I think it's wrong on a lot of levels, and I appreciate that we have people who listen to this podcast who are close to some of the conferences that I've just mentioned. Some of them closer than others. Um, but in my opinion, having auto bids to the college football playoff for any conference before a football has been thrown, run, tackled, fumbled, kicked, punted, spiked is wrong, in my opinion. Um, it just is. It just is. And some of the nuances within that are being discussed with certain conferences, like having a play-in game for, I think the ACC discussed having like a play-in game to decide who their third team will be that represents them in the college football playoff. No, no, thank you. That's for me. It's against everything that college football stands for. I think it dilutes the spectacle of the sport. I think it ruins the sport at a number of levels at a time where I don't think college football can afford to be ruined. Um, Especially as you say, you're coming off a season where it defied preseason um, assumptions about what an expanded playoff may look like. Let's not try and make it so that people are even less enamored with the process of how we decide who plays for a national championship.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you, Ollie. I think that the more you set in stone before the start of the year, the less there are for interesting stories coming through. I think there are a lot of really good underdog stories that could come out from this. And what we've seen is you don't have to have great stories in the first round. Right? You can have some blowout matches if it allows for great stories to happen throughout the year. Right? If a mid-major or a group of five team makes a fairy tale run, they go undefeated and they get in and they get blown out in week game one of the playoffs. Doesn't matter because they've had that story to get there. Right? Your stories come in your final fours and your championship games. So there's a lot that has to come from the the stories in the regular season. The minute you sort of say, you know, um, X number of teams get in, and it's four SEC teams. SEC title becomes meaningless at that point. Might as well get rid of the championship game because those teams are in, and it will be based on their ranking. And you also have the opportunity or the potential, and this happens in other sports. We're just coming off the men's volleyball national championship game in the NCAA last night. They have um, a 10-team tournament, and there's lots of auto bids into that, and two at large. There's only two at large bids in a 10-team tournament. And that meant that number six ranked USC didn't get into the tournament, and an unranked conference champion did. And there were not really any good games in the tournament because quite a few of the best teams were left out. I like the idea of some auto bids, especially with lower down conferences, to make them worth and make sure those athletes don't get lost and those teams don't get lost. But I do think you need to have the best teams, the best 16 teams, based on ranking, based on achievements throughout the year, not based on the conference that they play in.
I mean, if I was any other conference outside the SEC and the Big Ten, I'd be really worried about this move because this is the first step towards super conferences, right? And arguably we've already got them, but to have eight teams who automatic qualify, and I think we saw, I know both of you have made this very valid point. I think we saw last year the benefit of teams coming in on the ranking, yeah, there was a couple of blowout games, but then you saw the rise of Arizona State, which was arguably the best story in that college football playoff. And I would want to see more of that as a fan. I'd want to see more of that and less of teams automatically um, qualifying and then just getting knocked out in the first round, right? I mean, it also take a point, Alex. It also is not only does it get away with the conference championship games, I think it starts to make a mockery of the rankings, right? Because then what are we going to do? And I think teams can, particularly if you've got four teams from a conference, teams can manage and manipulate the way through their conference schedule, and arguably they're doing that anyway. But I shook my head when I saw. I think we all knew it was coming, right? And I don't think it'll stop at 16. I think it'll move beyond that. But the game is moving so far away from the game I think we all fell in love with, and we're not the longest tenured watchers of college football. I think people who have spent their lives watching college football must be pretty disillusioned by these moves, I would have thought.
Yeah, you would think so. And I think, we've seen that in the last couple of years, the disillusionment within fan bases on a number of levels with the current college football climate. Fans being asked to pay extra for season tickets to play for NIL money and things like that. You mentioned power conferences there. I wonder a little bit of, excuse me, I wonder a little bit of allowing SEC and the Big Ten, the largest slice of the college football playoff pie, is a move to try and prevent those two conferences from splitting off completely and having their own
Yeah.
little postseason party and trying to almost keep college football together in a way, but in a way that is kind of done wrong, I guess, from most people's perspective.
I mean, to kind of move seamlessly on to the next segment, we've obviously got, or getting closer to the house settlement coming to fruition. We all know that there's money that's going to be paid out to student athletes. This is the step towards, which is the whole point of the debate just now. This is the first step to athletes being paid by the universities, and then debate about whether they're going to be employees. So there's a lot happening, and I get my point, which I'm not making very well, is it's all about money, right? It's a money grab because the schools know that the schools have had it all their own way. They've been able to take the money in, they've been able to do what they get their employment for free. They pay their head coaches handsomely. Now they're having to share that with the student athletes, right? And there's going to be knock-on effects across schools nationally, but never fear, because the President of the United States has decreed that it's going to be sorted. And I didn't mean to make Ollie choke again, but I'm afraid this is clearly the end for Oliver. A presidential collegiate sports commission is the answer, headed up by Nick Saban and Texas Tech's Cody Campbell. Why are we even debating this? It's all been sorted.
Well, I'll see that next segment. I think we can all agree, though, right? If there is going to be some sort of non-NCAA overseeing of college football, there probably isn't a better man to do it than Nick Saban. And Texas Tech are in a really good spot right now, and a lot of the stuff that they're doing around the football program is in a very good spot. So, two very influential, powerful, respected people. If you were going to have some sort of presidential, what was it called, George? The presidential
Collegiate
commission,
Sports Commission.
great. Everything that Donald Trump does is incredible. Please, can I have my Twitter account back?
I was going to say, remember who's listening. Be nice.
But seriously, if this was to be a thing, you couldn't ask for a better person with more wisdom. We've seen in the past year since Nick Saban left Alabama, he's everyone knows what a great coach he is. There's absolutely no doubt about that. His record speaks for himself. Alex will testify to the books that he has on coaching philosophy, etc., etc., etc. I think we've seen in the last year like a side of Nick Saban that you probably haven't seen before, and that side is awesome as well. Like his ability to relate to whatever audience, college game day audience on a Saturday at noon Eastern, and whenever he's talking about college football on whatever program it might be to whatever audience it might be, he's got such a great way of communicating, and for a role like that is incredibly important. And there's a lot of things that combine to make Nick Saban just the perfect um, figurehead of whatever it is that commission will attempt attempt to achieve under the guidance of President Donald Trump. Please have my Twitter account back.
I mean, all joking aside, right? We've talked long and weary about the need for a college football czar, right? Now, the thing is, you can't just self-appoint a czar, and we've seen what college football has done so far in terms of trying to get its own house in order. So, if you're going to have a body to replace, not replace the NCAA, but to be there as the NCAA starts to, disappear off the scene, it kind of needs something like this. It kind of needs a higher body to say, listen, this is how it's going to work. Now, I don't know whether, people will accept or schools will accept it, but it kind of feels like you need to have some, I can't believe I'm saying this, some divine intervention.
We're
But,
gonna get the Pope involved. He's a Northwestern fan, right? Um,
the Bears.
for, for the longest time though, like the NCAA, in all seriousness, the NCAA has wanted to be the bastion of leadership for college football. They wanted to dictate and hold the power, but they haven't ever wanted to provide solutions or be a part of or involved in providing a solution. So if there is now something, whatever that may look like, led by whoever it may be led by, that provides the solutions and provides leadership guidance without just wanting to be seen as powerful, then I think that's to be celebrated, right?
I think so. I think so. We haven't left nearly enough time to talk about this, but we'll try and just slip it in. You talked about college game day. I guess inevitable, but sad nonetheless that Lee Corso has announced his retirement. He will make his final appearance week one, which I'll be amazed if that isn't the Texas Ohio State game, but we'll wait and see. Well, I mean, we don't have enough. We wouldn't, if we were doing a full episode, we wouldn't have enough time to talk about how much Lee Corso has impacted football. But I wonder if in the couple of minutes we've got remaining, we're going to talk about how Lee Corso might have impacted your love of college football or your watching of the college game.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you have these big personalities and yeah, they are just a beloved figure. You can tell that everyone who's worked in and around college game day or everyone who's worked in and around the sport loves Lee Corso. They love the man, they love the person, not the persona. Right? Everyone loves the persona as well, but everyone loved the person. Everyone loves the
Yeah.
person. And I think it's really, really important for sports to have that big persona there, that person that they can rely on to, come out and make a big difference and really push the game forward with what they're trying to do. And I think Lee Corso has 100% done that. Yeah, there's not a bad word said about him anywhere, and you need people like that in your sport. You need people like that in the world to keep it where we want it to be. So yeah, from that perspective, I think it's a deserved retirement, right? He's put in a lot of work over the last few years to help grow this game to the level it is at right now, and I don't think the game of college football would be where it's at without him. And I think that's a big spot to be in for him, and the person that's going to come up and take his spot, and it will have to be a different type of persona and a different type of person to kind of fill that role. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what game day looks like without him next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think it's one of those. Excuse me. I've got hay fever. I'm not overly emotional. The I think it's one of those things, and I think we've talked about it multiple times on this show over the years. Is you excuse me, you often tune in sports, whatever sport it might be, whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday or a Wednesday night Champions League match. You often tune in sport to take away or escape from what might have been the realities of a hard week or a hard day or a hard month or whatever like that. And when you tune into sport, you want to be surrounded by the people, the personalities that you can find comfort in to a degree. And I think nothing more in recent years is more comforting as a college football fan than turning on college game day um, at 9 a.m. Eastern. I think I said noon Eastern the other day earlier in this podcast for college game day start time. It's of course 9 a.m. Eastern. Um, I don't think there's been much more comforting things than turning on college game day as a college football fan and being met by Lee Corso and awaiting, Corso's mascot headgear choice at the end of the game, and I think seeing the love and the respect that anyone who ever encounters Lee Corso, whoever steps onto that stage, whoever that guest may be, that I think that is the ultimate kind of, I don't know, I can't think of the right words to describe it, but it's the ultimate sign of respect and the love and the comfort that Lee Corso has brought to college football. And I think a lot of people would say that it's probably been time for Coach Corso to have maybe not been on that stage for maybe a season or two now. He has had his ups and downs with health. His, kind of with as a college football community, almost watched him deteriorate in front of our very eyes, and that's not easy to watch. But also, like I say, there's that comfort in knowing that he was going to be there. But yeah, I think the retirement, maybe the end of the season might have been a better time than week one. But like you say, it very much seems like ESPN is destined for Columbus and to the horseshoe for that Ohio State Texas game, and there probably won't be a better game for him to have a send off at than that game. Unless he was in Bloomington, if the Hoosiers are a great team again this season and he got a hometown send off, that would be pretty special. But I think the horseshoe will be up there regardless.
Well, he's got very strong ties with Buckeyes, hasn't he, in terms of
Yeah,
his picking record and stuff like that. So
yeah, exactly.
it would feel like kind of full circle moment. And I think you're both absolutely spot on. He almost became the grandfather of college football, right? And therefore it's quite difficult to say goodbye to that for his perspective and for our perspective. And I think I don't know how it would have ended. Um, I'm sure. I'm sure as much as Lee Corso is Lee Corso, I think he's very much he doesn't feel the need to be at the centre of attention. So I guess the national championship game, if that was his last game, then he would probably feel that wasn't the way to go out. So at least with week one, with some razzmatazz, with Texas coming to town, that probably does feel at the right time. I certainly, from my perspective, and very similar to what you said, Ollie, in that when you watch a lot of pre-game shows, post-game shows, they're all very serious, all making a point about stuff. Corso brings in irreverence, but by Jove, when you look at his picking record, he clearly knows what he's doing, right? So you can have that irreverence, you can come out dressed as James Madison, but you can also get the pick spot on. So I think that's what people really admire about him, is that he's a very good pundit, but he adds that spark which draws people in. I mean, just look at the crowds that game day attracts. You're not telling me that, Lee Corso doesn't have a huge part of that, the growth of that program. So I'll be sorry to see him go, but Alex is right. What a career. So, but we'll touch on this again in not so many weeks or months' time when we get back to the start of the season. And we've run over a little bit. My fault. That's all from us on this episode. Thanks to Ant and Deck for their awesome input. Thanks to you for listening, and thanks for continuing to support us. Stay safe and well, and catch you all next time.